Trump looking to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C.
I've always been like a really big fan of Hillary Clinton, and like I followed her policy.
I think we need change, but Trump is definitely not the answer.
I think difference is a good thing. It's good we had new ideas this election cycle.
In my neighborhood, there's a lot of Trump supporters, so who knows? It's up in the air. It's very close.
There's only one person qualified to be president. I've never gotten a job that I wasn't qualified for.
Welcome back to this special edition of America Talks Live here on Newsmax. America Votes 2016 will take us from this point to midnight Eastern Time, or well past, depending on what happens in the voting booths and the offices of certain lawyers. Along with Miranda Kahn, I'm Ed Berliner, welcoming our worldwide audience to the proceedings. One we have been brought to thanks to the power of the poll, those intriguing little numbers that tell us everything we need to know about ourselves, or in the end, absolutely nothing. There you go. Welcome to senior analyst at Zogby Analytics, veteran pollster, author of We Are Many, We Are One, John Zogby, and returning is syndicated columnist and veteran economist Peter Morici. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. John, let's go ahead and begin with you. Let's talk about polls here. North Carolina and Florida, two big swing states. Hillary Clinton leads Donald Trump by 1 in Florida, 2 in North Carolina. John, we have seen these numbers just with incredible numerical swings in the last couple of weeks, and so many of them agree and disagree. How do the voters know which one to trust?
They don't. And basically that's why we kind of aggregate them and take averages of them. I mean, very simply, the real number in all these are the numbers of undecideds, and those are the ones that will decide close races, and we just don't know, even at this moment, right now, who's actually going to be turning out to vote. All of that is anecdotal so far until we get even the exit polls. And so we know these are close. The polls can tell us that much, but they're certainly not going to be projecting any winners on the basis of this.
Peter, another state, some argue that Trump needs to win tonight is Michigan, but he has some work to do. According to the Real Clear Politics average, Hillary Clinton leads Trump by 4 points there, 47-43. Trump has said that he will win that state several times. But in your opinion, what's the likelihood of that actually happening? And really, how critical is Michigan to his pathway to win?
Well, he has to win across the upper Midwest to really have a shot. Because I don't think he's going to win it through the traditional strategy of North Carolina, Virginia, Iowa, and so forth. He's going to win some of those states, perhaps, but not all of them. My feeling is that there'll be, one unexpected upset as far as the polls go across the upper tier, but there won't be a succession of those to make him president.
So let's go to the upset factor here. Bring you in on this, John. With all these polls and all these numbers, what are we looking for? We go through the evening here, and we've got so many things that we're going to hear. We're going to hear experts, analysts, numbers. What should we, in your opinion, be looking for that will tell us that we've got an upset in the making somewhere?
We ought to be looking at North Carolina and the African-American vote more than anything else, I think. 15 electoral votes. Yeah, Barack Obama won it in 08. He lost it by a little bit to Mitt Romney in 2012. Right now, closer than close, and it's going to be young African Americans. East Coast state, and if we see that young blacks are voting in North Carolina, good shot that's going to tell us about the vote of young blacks throughout the country. I'm looking at Pennsylvania as well, because Pennsylvania has really tightened up. It's a battle now between Philadelphia suburbs. Heavy turnout there, heavy turnout in Philadelphia during a transit strike, no less. And Hillary Clinton wins, and that's a good sign. She'll do very, very well. If Pennsylvania is very close, that means there's a shot for Donald Trump in a state like Michigan.
Peter, you just heard John talk about the young African-American vote. We've also heard several people talk about the Latino vote, specifically talking about Puerto Ricans in the state of Florida, primarily in the Orlando area, and how that could possibly swing things towards Hillary Clinton. Basically, what is your assessment on the state of Florida?
My feeling is the state of Florida will be where Donald Trump loses the election. That once Florida comes in, it's over. The influx of Puerto Ricans, because of economic conditions there, they can come to Florida and vote immediately, has really worked to make that state more difficult for Republicans. And I think that's going to tell a story nationally. I don't think that Republicans can continue to nominate candidates that insult Hispanic voters during the primaries and expect to win the general election. You don't have to win a majority of Hispanics, but you got to get up into the 40s. And neither Trump nor Romney will have accomplished that. With regard to African-American voters, I would also suggest you look at the state where I am teaching, Maryland. I mean, it's doubtful that Trump can win that state. But if it's very, very close and it comes in early in the evening, and African Americans have stayed away in Baltimore because they've taken the outcome for granted, then look for that to echo across the country. And much as we're going to look at North Carolina in that regard. If it's very close in Maryland and North Carolina swings to Trump, partially on the strength of African Americans not showing up, then Hillary's going to have a long night before she becomes president, if at all.
John, we're sitting here talking about all the states, and we've been talking about big key states, Pennsylvania, Florida, Michigan. We're talking about looking at these states on the East Coast. Now, I understand Arizona and Utah are sort of interesting at this point as we look at everything, because certainly Arizona, nobody thought this would ever be in play at this time. But let me go ahead and just throw this out. We're talking about East Coast states here. Is it possible that by the time we get to Texas, Central Time Zone, that this election will, for all intents and purposes, electorally, in the Electoral College side of things, be decided?
There are any number of scenarios that can play out today. I'm looking at the East Coast because that will give me a peek as to how the nation is going to go. But if those states are not decided early, then we do shift to the deep central and then the Pacific time zone. And look, Arizona has been in play to some degree because of the Latino vote. Utah has been in play because there's a third candidate there who, for a while at least, was pretty competitive in taking votes away from the Republican. And if those 5 votes are taken out of the Republican column, that just even complicates the Electoral College even more.
What does that tell you then, John, if we are looking at an election with Arizona, Nevada, and Utah in question as toss-ups? And I say that again by leading off with Arizona. To even think the possibility exists that they could be a toss-up out of the Republican column, that's almost unheard of.
Look, the Republican Party has a lot of soul-searching to do. It already had one autopsy, and frankly, I'm of the belief you only get one autopsy. I think the party is dead. At least the party that we know. The Latino vote is a big factor in all of that. I don't know how many mea culpas that the Republican Party could do. That's even before Donald Trump. And then after Donald Trump, that's where I think the party is dead. This vote is growing. But with all of that said, Hillary was the one who asked the question herself. Why is this election then even close? And the short answer is 2 words: Hillary Clinton. That's what's made it close.
Yeah, what you said is just really astounding. Peter, I want to get your reaction to what you just heard John say. Do you think that the Republican Party, at least as we know it, is dead?
Well, I think we have to read history correctly. The Republican Party really wasn't born in Wisconsin in 1856, because if you look at who organized the Republican Party, it was a lot of people from the old dead Whigs Party. My feeling is that it is possible that the Republican Party has to reconstitute itself under a new name. But the people that do the reconstituting are going to look a lot like the old Republican Party. They're going to be people like, Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio and so forth. But the most important thing that whatever emerges to replace the existing Republican Party, that the process for picking the nominee has to change. They simply can't let this party be held hostage by the folks with old pickup trucks and gun racks and the like, and the NRA and what have you. While I have some sympathy for their views and their circumstances, the kind of ideological purity that they require and the kinds of statements that they elicit from Romney was a reasonable, moderate, decent guy. And in order to get nominated, said enough things that his goose was cooked, in June of that election cycle. My feeling is that something new is going to come along, but it isn't going to help if they don't have reforms in the way they pick their nominee.
Let me do this. 10 seconds to each of you. Peter, I'll stay with you. Do you believe that the current Republican leadership can do this? Do you believe that they have the right people in charge who can change this party and change it for the better and make it a power again?
Well, it isn't going to be people like Jeb Bush. If Donald Trump's right about it, one thing is those folks are really spoiled elitists who, had rich daddies and all the rest. It's going to be people like Marco Rubio who are pragmatic and hungry. that make the changes. So there's some personalities present, but they're not going to be the people that, write for the establishment Republican and conservative magazines and so forth, and people like Bush.
The different ones. 10 seconds, John. Same question.
40, 40, 20. The oldest millennials in 2020 will be 40 years old. The millennials will be 40% of the party. Jeb Bush and the Republican Party establishment doesn't know how to talk to millennials.
There you go. John Zogby, Peter Morici. Gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. We will look forward to talking to you again. Coming up next, James Comey and his effect on Hillary Clinton's campaign, because everybody has seen what has been going on here in the last couple of weeks and how things have changed, how everything has swung because of an FBI director. Odd on